Okay, so my wife sent me this link to Mumsnet. Okay, so okay, so basically to think a huge crypto Bitcoin bloodbath is on the cards. I have thought this for quite a while, but surely it's any day now. Okay. How this crypto market is sustainable is a mystery. A lot of it is backed up by Tether, a so-called stable coin meant to be worth $1, but it is suspected Tether isn't backed by anything. It's just printed tokens backed by nothing. Okay, so let's address some of these points that are going to be coming up. So the Tether thing, well, first of all, Bitcoin isn't really backed. Bitcoin isn't backed by Tether. Okay, people are basically happy to pay the current price in US dollars of $40,000. Okay, so it's not backed by anything. There are so many of them in the world. Okay, 21 million will come out eventually. About 6 million are probably lost. And that's all there is to it. Okay. Now, we only use the dollar as something easy for people to understand what something is worth. You know, we're comparing it with the dollar. Okay, but eventually, well, who knows, the dollar might get phased out eventually, but you know, we might be counting things in bitcoins or fractions of bitcoins in the future. I have no idea what Yabu and Yambu are, but I've got a cup that says Yabu on it. Some sort of, I've no idea what it means. So if anyone tells me what Yabu means and Yanbu, please let me know. I can't be bothered looking it up. It's probably a bit sweary. Yanbu, that's what they said. No idea. Crypto fans love to rave about how it's fairer and safer because it's decentralized. But in reality, it's unstable and majority owned by a small handful of players who control the field and are making money at the expense of everyone else. Yes and no to some of those points. If you think about countries like El Salvador, they seem to be taking back. So people are giving haircuts and charging the prices in Bitcoin. When people are sending money back to poorer countries, they're using Bitcoin instead of using Western Union. So instead of sending $100 back with Western Union and having to pay up $40 of fees, and then the person you send it to only gets $60 worth, they're sending $100 worth of cryptocurrency. Yes, people say, well, it might have gone down by the time it gets to them, although that should only take 10 minutes anyway. And once they sell it and using their local currency, you can use it as Bitcoin in Bitcoin or whatever. Okay, and a lot of people have been finding that the price has been going up, especially if you look at the last 12 years, 13 years of the length of the life of Bitcoin. You know, in general, the price of Bitcoin, the value of Bitcoin, should I say, has gone up in value. So what do you mean by a bloodbath? Silly question. It's a bubble that has to burst eventually. Everyone who owns them has a vested interest in them, keeping their value, though, which is why crypto bros get so defensive over it. Okay, so that's fair enough. We all know that if you hold a coin, you want to shield that coin. You want that coin to go to the moon, and any coins you don't hold, you're not really asked about. Okay, fair point. Yanbu, I think it was Warren Buffett who said investment must be rational. If you can't understand it, don't do it. Anyone investing in Bitcoin is basically just gambling. Also, Bitcoin is terrible for the environment. Okay, so I think a lot of so yes, I would say if you don't know what you're doing, then don't invest in it. That's so what you should do is go out and understand it. Okay, lots of people are investing in Bitcoin. So if you don't understand it, go out there, understand it. There's white paper on Bitcoin. Okay, anyone investing in Bitcoin is basically just gambling. Well, to be honest with you, you're gambling on anything. You're gambling holding bits of paper that's printed off by the Fed. If you're holding US dollars, you're holding pound, 10-pound notes, 20-pound notes, 50-pound notes. As I am in, well, I never get to see a 50-pound note. But if you're holding pound notes and 10-pound notes in the UK, they're printed off from the Bank of England. And what are they backed? They're backed by nothing. So You're gambling on that everybody thinks that a £10 note in your hand is worth something. When reality is, it's just a bit of paper, probably worth a penny, 2 pence or something like that. You know, if you took out the silver strip down, if they still use a silver strip, you're gambling on that. You're gambling everything, okay? Somewhere you got to draw the line of what is acceptable gamble and what isn't, okay? Look at the price of Bitcoin. It's gone up, okay? On the whole, yes, it's as it's dipped. You look at anything, though, that tends to have dips. You know, if it's gone from here to here, it won't have gone up there smoothly. It's not like a straight diagonal line. The FCA advice is pretty much only put money into crypto that you're happy to never see again. It's an environmental nightmare too. So this environmental nightmare, this is basically a lot of FUD that's created by media, the TV, where they go on about electricity is being used to mine Bitcoin, and it creates loads of heat as well, and it's really bad for the environment. So a lot of Bitcoin, most Bitcoin, from what I can gather, is a lot of it is used by hydroelectric power stations and stuff like that, and some even old electric power stations that are using water, hydroelectric power stations, and now mining Bitcoin. Okay, so it's environmentally friendly. Now, if you compare that to the banks, which are using money and sending money around and stuff like that, they're using computers to send money around, okay, in the same way, okay? And then you've got people who are driving to work. You're driving to a bank, maybe. Still people who are working behind banks, you know, cash tellers and stuff like that. They're having to drive their car to the bank. They're having to drive it back again. They don't live in the bank, okay? You're having to put the lights on at the bank. You're having to heat the bank up. Okay, that's all energy. Okay. My Bitcoin is on my, well, it's not actually on my computer, it's on Binance's computers, okay? They store it for me. It's not costing me any extra. But if we got rid of all the banks, that would save an immense amount of electricity and stuff. So, you know, swings and roundabouts. Presumably they've read about the tulip bubble and learned how to keep it going as long as possible. But yes, it's a bubble. I mean, diamonds are a bubble, realistic, and they've gone for decades. At least they're sparkly, but Bitcoin isn't. Okay, so we know about the tulip thing, where tulips were worth thousands of pounds in the past, and then eventually nobody thought they were worth anything. Oh, not worth that much, okay? And then the market just died, basically. But tulips, you can grow tulips. You can grow loads of tulips. Bitcoin, you can't. There's 21 million. There's a certain amount of supply, and the supply is dwindling. It's not a tulip. Bitcoin is not a tulip. One could argue that the looming massive Bitcoin payout following the Mt. Gox crash in 2000 could indeed trigger this. Okay, so I've talked about Mt. Gox in a previous video, where the payout, it could, the people getting Bitcoin from that could dump their Bitcoin on the market. Okay, and that could suppress the value. Okay, but that's only a temporary thing anyway. You know, if they are doing that, eventually the amount of Bitcoin that they're selling on the exchanges will dwindle, and it won't be an effect, if that is an effect at all. Personally, I think I'm fine either way. I've made money from cryptocurrencies. I make more money, but I have to say I don't feel especially enjoyable or interesting. Okay. Is there clear utility? Okay. So yeah, that's a good question. Is there clear utility in the cryptocurrency? So if there is, then it's a good crypto, I would say. So Doge, pile of shit. Okay, there's no real utility in it other than it's pretty cheap and you can use it as currency. But you can use all of them for currency. So it's not really got a great utility on that one. Toe things have happened recently. What? Don't know what that means. Toe things? US has tightened monetary policy. China banned crypto last year, so all the Bitcoin miners went to a dormant volcano in Kazakhstan. Recent unrest has meant the internet isn't running enough for mining. 18% of Bitcoin is produced there. In addition, there have been worrying signs that several other economically significant countries won't accept crypto. Conversely, Gibraltar might become a crypto hub, okay, and run their stock exchange. One Latin American town is planning to mine crypto with government backing. That'll be El Salvador. It's like the property market in some ways. A tumble in the prices always has people saying it's a bubble that might burst. Most of the time it doesn't. Occasionally it does. Okay, so that's pretty reasonable. The China ban, a lot of that was to do with the electricity. I think they wanted the miners out. They were using coal, though. A lot of China were using coal, I do believe, to do the mining. Yeah, I mean, US is a bit of a weird country because obviously US is quite a long way technologically above a lot of countries. But in terms of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, they can be quite a bit behind. Okay, you know, they're having ridiculous rules where other countries are thinking, well, we'll take this, we'll do this, and US are going to get left behind if they're not careful. A lot of counselors in the US, I'm not sure if counselor is the right word, but people who are in charge, you know, they recognize this and think, you know, we need to be in this. You know, if you're putting bans on it, you're more likely to, you know, you lose it. Still, the one thing I don't understand about crypto is that it's supposed to be a currency. Well, not necessarily. Okay, a lot of people are changing the idea as call it an asset rather than a currency. So we can sort of scrap that, whatever the rest he says there. It's crashing at the moment. Okay, so it did actually. Okay, but it's come back up again. But that's what it does. Yeah, I'll say go back up in the future though. It did. I bought some last year, sold enough to cover my investment when it went up, and I'm holding some long term now. Okay. I know very little about Bitcoin, so why is it bad for the environment? It isn't really. Because the cloud isn't actually a cloud, it's a massive server farms in the desert. In the desert? Why do you put it in the desert creating heat? You'd put it in a cold place, pumping out heat and requiring enormous cooling, which is, you'd require even more cooling if you had it in the desert, which is wildly energy sucking. Yeah, I don't think that person's very intelligent. The process for creating new Bitcoins and validating the transaction is called mining. It's essentially involves lots and lots and lots. Wow, there's a lot of lots there of computers doing hugely complicated, energy-intensive calculations. According to Geoconomist, a cryptocurrency analytic site, a single Bitcoin transaction uses that amount of electricity, which equals the amount of power consumed by the average American household over 72 days. Okay, but once it's created, it's there. Okay, you don't have to keep creating it. I'm not sure about those figures, so I can't back up that. DH is a nerd. What? And says that quantum computers will render Bitcoin blockchain and LTs as useless as tulips. Seriously, it's a good job. He is really hot. No idea what that's about. Who's DH? If you can't understand it, don't do it. It must also logically follow that if you can't understand it, your discussions will be somewhat limited, though. Also, not understanding it hasn't really held people back from using modern tech, has it? Yeah. At least housing is something people need and use. It has value in itself. Bitcoin is no more than boxing up fresh air and conning people into thinking it's worth something. It's the biggest con of modern times. It is 100% a Ponzi scheme. And what do you think the US dollar is? Okay. The US dollar is the biggest Ponzi scheme going. Okay, because the US dollar is unlimited. Okay, you just keep printing and printing and printing. There's 21 million Bitcoin. There's a set supply. Now, some of these other coins, you know, Doge, for instance, Shiba Inu's massive amount of coins. Yeah, they're too many. Okay, I agree. I've never understood it. Okay, so if you never understood it, you need to stop talking right now. They say they're mining it and using gargantuan masses of energy, but mining what? Mining means having something tangible at the end of the process. Oh, Jesus. I'll be sticking to investments I can understand. They've worked well for me and DH so far, whoever DH is. Might add that a very successful, highly paid relative of DH who's been in an investment mode for many years won't put up other people's cash into anything unless he understands fully how the company makes its money. If that means the company's totally factory, so be it. Okay, right, whatever. DH in there, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be a good few years before quantum computers are good enough to crack Bitcoin. And they're already working on increasing the level of encryption to defend against quantum computing. I think there are a much bigger risk to Bitcoin in the short term. Yeah, agreed. And by the way, if quantum computers come out, Bitcoin will be the last thing we're worried about. Okay, it'd be other stuff. Okay, Bitcoin will be the least of our worries. It's all a massive pyramid scheme. The tokens go up in value because there is increasing demand for them, but there is no inherent value in it. Well, we know there is. There is they have utility. Certain ones don't. We agree with that. Okay, certain and lots of them do have utility. People only invest in them because they think they'll increase in value. That's probably true. Most people think they're going to go up in value, okay? Or for some because they're anonymous. What? Because they are anonymous and so can be used for underground purposes. Yeah, well, I guess they could be. Okay, they started off in that way, I guess. Okay, thicko alert here. How is crypto mined? Here to be educated. Thanks in advance. Oh dear. I don't think it'll necessarily be happening imminently, but cryptocurrencies will crash eventually simply because they have no intrinsic value. Well, some of them do. They're not going to be backed up by government because they can be decentralized. That's the whole point. Things like gold have intrinsic value because they are scarce. No, they're not really scarce. You can get them on asteroids and stuff. We'll be mining asteroids in space. Okay. So the scarcity is not there. Bitcoin, there's 21 million and that's it. There are no more. And we've lost a third of them probably. Bitcoin's only going to go down. After they've all been mined, they'll start going down. And I wouldn't be surprised if the amount of mined versus the amount that gets lost is probably a differential anyway, that they're going down anyway. Gold might fall in price, but will never be wiped out entirely because people will always want it and there will always be uses for it. There are uses for gold, that's true. Traditional currencies might crash from time to time, but rarely do so when a reputable government. Well, reputable government. There's no such thing as a reputable government. We've all seen that. The amount of trust in governments has gone like, woo. Cryptocurrencies are not worth anything themselves, and no major government will bail them out if they fail. Okay. Okay, so I've had enough of that discussion. I've kind of tackled a lot of the things. Answer in the comments below what you think, or if you want to add in some more explanations of your own or whatever, then feel free. Okay, so that's the Mumsnet. Am I being unreasonable? I think that Bitcoin's going to be a massive bloodbath. Okay, the end.